This conference will now be recorded.
That's my bed.
Oh,
Yeah.
I should have asked him.
At 10 seconds.
Doodle.
10 seconds.
It's down to the second now.
Down seconds. We have some room right up front if you want to sit up here.
I'd give up a seat for one of the girls.
Oh,
Get some more seats up. Come on up. I've heard this stuff before. I'm right.
it's 5:30. We're going to call the meeting to order.
Commissioner Jennings,
Here.
Commissioner Rogers,
Here.
Commissioner Spielman,
Here.
Commissioner Warren,
Here.
Mayor Ginger.
Here. If you feel like it and want to, you can rise for the pledge, the prayer, and we will have that done by members of the one-room schoolhouse. Okay? The opening prayer first.
Please bow your head. Dear Lord, thank you for the day. Thank you for our family, friends, and freedom. Thank you for the country and city we live in. We ask if you will bless this meeting tonight. Give wisdom for our city council members and mayor as they make decisions for our town. Thank you again for all our blessings. Amen.
Amen. You're going to face the flag.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any additions or deletions from the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as written. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify with aye.
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 All opposed, same sign.
Sorry about that.
Motion passes. Awards and proclamations.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Whereas the second full week of September has been designated as National Direct Support Professionals Recognition Week in order to annually celebrate and recognize professionals who provide support to millions of individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And the celebration recognizes the dedication and vital role of direct support professionals in enhancing the lives and protecting the well-being of individuals with disabilities of all ages. And whereas the community plays a role in lifting up direct support professionals and integral in supporting the needs of people with disabilities and their families through service systems across the United States. And whereas the goals of the city and its Equal Opportunity and Accessibility Advisory Board properly give recognition to those who directly help people with disabilities to gain full access to housing, employment, and recreation activities that help to create productive and satisfying lives, and also to live as independently as possible. Now, therefore, the mayor of the city of Arkansas City, Kansas, does hereby proclaim September 11th through the 17th, 2022, as Direct Support Professionals Recognition Week in the city of Arkansas City, and call upon the citizens of Arkansas City to observe this week with appropriate programs and activities. Furthermore, encourage the citizens of Arkansas City to seek information from those organizations with expertise in matters concerning professionals who support individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Good job. That was good.
Thank you.
Signed by all the commissioners.
Thank you so much.
Yes. I dealt with all the commissioners.
You get a picture?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get over here a little closer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
There you go.
There's the fun part.
Okay. Okay. That's for Leslie.
Leslie?
So at this time, we'll have comments that are not on the agenda from audience members. First one is Jim Seibert.
Mine's for the agenda.
Oh, okay. Regina Stoddard. Come up to the podium. And if you would give us your name and address.
My name is Regina Stoddard, 7167 244th Road.
Okay.
I just have a question and some comments. I have talked to Dr. Rogers before, about like the 10-year tax
Abatement.
What happens after that 10 years is up? Does it, like with the appraisals that have gone sky high, or not appraisals really, assessments that have gone sky high on some of my properties? With that going up, and I look for it to keep continuing to go up after that 10 years, and, what would like my taxes be like,
Well, on the abatement program, we will yield to the city manager who can give you a better understanding of that.
Yeah, so at the end of that abatement period, they would go back on the tax rolls at the appraised value. Josh, do you have anything to add to that?
That's how I would describe it.
Okay.
So if your house is worth 1,000 before you did, I assume neighborhood remodel, if you remodel the house, and then after it's done, there's 2,000, you don't have to pay 10% of that increase, that 90/10, I believe. So that $1,000 increase, you'd pay just that for the next 10 years. After that, you'll pay the full amount. Is that correct? So you'll be paying the full appraised amount
Graduation.
of 2,000 or whatever it's appraised at after it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right now, you just pay 90% of the difference, if I'm understanding that correctly, and then afterwards, you'll be paying the full amount of taxes on it after that 10 years.
Okay, so like the last house that we purchased, it increased in assessment of $38,000.
I
So,
don't know what 38 would be tax-wise. That's the assessed value. I don't know what the exact tax increase is, but yes.
What the abatement does, of course, is all based on the mill levy,
right,
not necessarily the market value, but functionally you got the 90% abatement. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, for 10 years. And then at the end of 10 years, it is that's a federally funded program. And by the federal guidelines, then what the intent of that is to incentivize people to buy or improve properties without punishing you by hitting you with taxes for expanding the footprint of your property or the value of your property for the period of time which this governing body in the past has said 10 years. At the end of 10 years, then of course that's when the other shoe drops and it comes back on the tax rolls at full taxable value, whatever the appraisal and assessment is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not a 38,000 increase. It's whatever that equals out to the mill.
Whatever your mill assessment would be, you would pay 100% of it rather than 10%.
So that brings me to the next question. As being a landlord, when my husband and I started into this, I have it that if I don't want to live in the property, I don't want anybody else living in the property. So yeah, that's basically, we're going in and we are sometimes doing a total gut and redo, or, so is it feasible for us to really continue to do that in the city of Arc City? With, having that 10 years there and then being whammed all at once at the end with increase of taxes. Is it going to be feasible for us, or are we going to say, okay, before that 10 years is up, we'll throw that on someone else and sell our properties?
Well, it's not an increase of taxes. What you're getting is a decrease in taxes for
that 10 years.
For that 10 years, and then it's coming to what you would have paid had you not had that decrease.
The way I understand, if your taxes are going up, you're still paying your 10% each time they go up.
Right.
So.
But at the end of that 10 years, you get it all.
What are you going to do with the property? Are you going to rent it?
That's what we do, because we know there is a rental shortage here in Arc City, and we're trying to,
help in that.
Help open it up, but also not have houses that the roofs are leaking, the plumbing is backing up, the water is freezing every winter. Our tenants, I want them to be proud to live in our houses, so they stay. And right now, the only turnover we have is on a triplex. Well, that's the only turnover. Everybody else, once they get in there, they're in there, and they've been in there 4 or 5 years.
Some cities don't have this at all.
Right.
And some cities do. So it doesn't matter where you are or where you're going to buy your houses or rental properties, you're going to face property taxes. And so we have at least 2 different ways. We've got the neighborhood revitalization. That's for the entire town instead of just a small section of it. The city manager made sure that the commission understood doing it for the entire town. There's not anything to explain taxes away. I understand what you're saying. I'm going to get hit with that.
Right.
And but you're getting a decrease and an opportunity to get your properties the way you want them.
Okay, and so that brings me to another one. What about all the houses that are sitting empty?
Madam Mayor, if I might.
Yes.
Functionally, everybody has a passion, okay?
Right.
This happens to be one of mine, and dating back to the early 2000s when the neighborhood revitalization program was bought here, initially, the philosophy, federally speaking, was to target, as you just stated, your final point, blighted areas with homes and structures that were substandard and had suppressed market values, and therefore, I'll use my word, my language on it, are a cancer to the tax base, because you have, where market values are going up and up and up. You have vacated properties, neglected properties that either stay stagnant or decline in value. All right. The whole idea was to take those areas and grow the tax base there rather than the broader community. And then that way your wham isn't as big a wham, because what we've done is we've taken all these suppressed properties and we've made them healthy contributors to the tax base in the community. Vacant lots don't yield much.
Right.
Dilapidated properties don't yield much. Okay, so the fancy of that was to eliminate those that were a leech on the tax base. And by doing it in the broader community, we've touched a lot of other areas. But what we've still left are these efficient properties that are not, I mean, every lot, we ought to be able to say with the structure on it, ought to be within a median range. Okay, but instead we have some that are very suppressed. And that's what makes the ones that are more attractive cost more. That's my speech. Nobody else has to agree with it. But I think we sometimes need to go back to what its intent was to generate a larger tax base throughout the community instead of just spot checking. And I mean, now that doesn't change your concern at all. It just kind of shows you why.
I think we have a lot of concerns with empty lots, vacant lots, houses that aren't, I mean, I think that's the concern for, I guess I'm speaking for the commission, for the whole commission. We do want to try to see those properties either be sold, torn down, rebuilt, or remodeled, or something happen to them within the city.
Well, I went on, I found this website, it's called PropStream. And you can do like a 7-day free trial thing. And it tells you how many foreclosure houses are in your area that you plug in and how many empty. Between foreclosure and empty, there are over 1,000 houses between Clark City and Winfield.
Between the two cities.
Between the two cities, there's over 1,000 that are either empty properties or properties that are in foreclosure. You know, and with, you know, the mill levies and exceeding the revenue neutral and all of that, all of us ones that do have the properties, take care of our properties, we feel like we're being punished for the people that aren't taking care of theirs. And so it's like, do we stay or do we go?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I feel like this is moving towards an agenda item we have for this evening.
Yep.
Okay.
So maybe
Thank
we
you.
can include it into that if
Thank you.
it's the will of the governing body.
Yes, that's fine. Boyd Colson, is yours an agenda item as well? Well, I'm just looking that you signed up on the sheet for items not on the agenda.
Yeah, we're not there yet, but I think he is wanting to speak on the
Okay.
property tax, right? Yeah, so.
Okay. A second. Did anybody not get one of these that wanted one?
I'm here about the liquor license for our chamber banquet. I considered A not on the agenda.
No, you're on the agenda.
Didn't see anything about the chamber.
Yeah, it's not.
I just didn't know if that was part of the county markets.
I guess so.
Make a motion to open this public hearing.
Now we need to finish the consent agenda. I don't know if we've done the consent agenda yet.
We have not.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't. Okay. We're not going to either. Just kidding.
Go ahead.
Okay. Item 4,
Consent.
the consent agenda.
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as written. Anyone have any comments, discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Old business.
Item 1, hold a public hearing to receive public comment relating to the revenue neutral rate.
I'll make a motion that we open the public hearing to receive public comment related to the revenue neutral rate.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify.
Roll call.
Oh, it's roll call, sorry.
On this resolution.
No, I reson, never mind. All those in favor?
The hearing is a voice.
All in favor signify with aye. All opposed, same sign. Public hearing is open.
Now you could probably go back to Ms. Stoddard
Yes. Stoddard,
if she wants to continue.
do you want to talk on the public hearing? I need you to come up, state your name, and, well, we just want to get everybody in the habit.
Regina Stoddard, 7167, 244th Road. The mill levies, I got my paperwork in the mail.
Mhm.
And I know, I went to the Cali College meeting. And I know the mill levies are a little bit lower than our last year's on my paperwork. You can grab it out of my purse. The 2022 notice.
Mhm.
It has my prior tax year. It has Arkansas City at 70.065 tax rate for the prior year.
Mhm.
And the revenue neutral is 61.044. And the proposed budget is the 70.049.
Mhm.
So I noticed there's just a tiny bit of a drop right there.
Mhm.
But this is the one that I said that the prior year appraised and the current year appraised. This one went up $50,000
For your,
for a rental property.
okay, for a rental property. So first, let me say to everybody who's here for this, we don't control the appraisals at all.
Right.
And we don't decide the value of any piece of property whatsoever. When you see what the revenue, and the treasurer's here, she's going to flag me if I make a mistake, but the revenue neutral rate would be to spend exactly what we spent last year, this year. And as any of you know who've been to the grocery store, who have put gas in your car, paid your utility bills, that is almost impossible to do. We've cut out what we could. The county, the college, and the state of Kansas, a mill doesn't mean anything. It's a word the state uses to allocate the tax revenue brought in, correct? Okay. So it's just a word. And so when we look at the mill and the value of the mill in those 5 entities that are taxing you on your property tax is completely different. The college, the state of Kansas, and the county of Cowley, at this point, now, not next year, but at this point, they receive $306,000 per mill. So the increase that they're looking at is, do you have any idea that's going to 330 something?
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay, but yes.
I'm sorry. At the risk of not wanting to offend one of our taxing jurisdictions,
I don't.
You mentioned the county, the college, and the city of Arkansas City.
No, the state.
But the state, you didn't make any reference to our educational taxing jurisdiction.
I haven't got there yet.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't want them to think. Okay.
Those 3 taxing entities have the same. And the reason they have the same is because they tax the entire county, everything in it. Okay. Then you have the school district, which taxes a smaller section of the county. And that is, they have 3 different jurisdictions. They have the general fund that they tax for. They have the build it fund or whatever it's called, and the educational. So they get between 100,000 and up per mill currently. That will go up. The city of Arkansas City gets $61,000 per mill currently. Okay. And out of that, we have debt services, which are things we bought, we still have to pay for. And we will not be out of that until February of 2025. Okay. So those are things that we automatically, that comes off the top, and that's almost 5 mills. Then we have the library, which receives 6 mills off the top of $61,000 per mill. Those are things we can't control. So we have a budget of almost $38 million. 33 million. I keep saying 38, I don't know why. 33 million, and out of that, your property tax is about $4.9 million for the entire city. But we only tax what is inside the city limits. School district is bigger. Everything else is for the full county. So out of our 61,000 a mil, 4.9 million, $1 million comes off between debt services and what we give to the library automatically. And so we're looking at 3.9 million out of a $33 million budget. This that I handed out to anybody who wanted one is what the $630,000, that's the increase between 4,938 residential meters and commercial meters. That's total, right? Okay. So that divides everything we've got by $3.9 million. So it kind of gives you an idea of how much is coming from each address per. And I love the turnout that came today but we've begged for citizen input for 6 months. Please come, please come. We held town hall. Please come, please come. Tell us what you're thinking. So I love the fact that you're here now, but I want you to understand we worked very hard to get it down in a time where everything that's gone up for you and every single one of us pays the same as every single one of you. We all live inside the city limits. So.
Right. I can direct some questions.
Okay.
Has there been, on the library, has there been an increase of usage by people coming in and using the library?
I don't know if there's been an increase. When they came in and gave their presentation, they asked for the same mill amount. They don't get a dollar amount, they get a mill amount. So whatever the value of that mill is, they get it. So when it goes up, this will go up.
That's an ordinance too, correct? Is that an ordinance?
That's-
Yeah, it's an ordinance. So that wasn't like, we just didn't say,
Okay.
you get this amount. It was an ordinance and it'd take a.
It would take a vote to change that over a supermajority. No, that's a resolution, isn't it?
It was charter ordinance.
Charter ordinance.
So it takes a supermajority, so 4 of us would have to agree to lower that. What do you need? What?
Vice Chair of your library committee.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes, the library continues to be serving the public.
Right.
Yes, as I mentioned at your town hall.
Good.
Thank you. As I mentioned at your town hall, COVID impacted the numbers because the building wasn't open all the time. But the services were still available at curbside and even home delivery and even virtually. So yes, your library does well serving its public. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, your next question?
The park, the restrooms. What's the usage at the parks?
The usage of the parks.
I know Pershing has a porta pot.
And that is the idea. We rent those every month for every year that we've had them in there. We want to get permanent restrooms in there to curb the rental. And I'm guessing, Tony, have you had any problems with the porta potties?
Yes.
Okay. So we need something that can't be knocked over. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other?
That's Tony, you know. We
And
pay
my
for
big
those.
ones, with everybody, facing, the increases and everything. There's not a lot of other people that I see that are getting increases in salaries. Why is it so much?
It is $1 per hour.
Increase?
So increase. It's not a lot,
Yes.
right? For all the
They
city
haven't had an
employees.
increase
4 years.
Okay.
No, you're fine. Of any substance. What we decided to do as a commission was to not do a COLA, which is a percentage increase, which helps the upper layer more than it does the bottom layer. And so this was a complete difference in a straight dollar an hour across the board for every employee.
I think it's a way to compete with private sectors. A lot of you guys know, you can go out there and see what some of the local businesses here are hiring at, and it's substantially
Higher.
they've increased a lot. And we're just losing good employees, or we could have lost good employees, and
Right.
it's hard to then find someone that has the qualifications or the character qualities to take those people.
Crazy.
Yeah,
Well,
so that was one of the reasons we did that, was we were starting to,
Right.
having to compete against the private sector, so.
And as you know, the situation when you go into public service is never about, I'm going to make as much as I could make in the private sector. But the loyalty is what's built to keep a city employee. That's their benefits, their retirement, things like that.
Health
And
insurance.
so, yeah, benefits. And so to do that, we felt like this would be a way of saying to them, we hear you and we know, so. Anything else?
No.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the good questions.
Thank you.
Our public hearing is still open. Just who's the next?
Holston was on your list, I think.
Yes, I know. Are you ready? Okay. Thank you.
Lee Colston, 125 North 8th Street, in Park City, Kansas. To preface my comments, if I slur my speech and don't make sense, I'm going to blame my dentist.
Is he here tonight?
My favorite Oklahoman is Will Rogers. He said in 1930-something, it's hard to tell the difference between a Democrat and a Republican. Those words are never more true than last year it was defund the police and this year is defund the FBI. Tired of voting for people to fix the debt and not going up and fixing it. You all have a debt. When I vote for government, I vote to have a zero or as close to zero debt as we can have and be fiscally responsible with what the citizens give us to live in. We have not had a national debt since 1835. Andrew Jackson was president. How are we going to fix water and streets on the budget that you have in the 6 mills or the power mills? The library, I'm your vice chair. We can't afford a new library. We want a new library. We need a new library because, as I mentioned in your public meeting, we're putting Band-Aids on the current building. That's not going to last forever. So, how are we going to pay for this? As I mentioned in your public meeting, you can have a benefactor bequeath billions of dollars to the city. That's an option. You can apply for ARPA funds. That's an option. You can redo the bond issue that paid for the best water in Ark City and make it where the distribution system comes up to a measurable level of improvement. That's not a physically responsible occurrence, in my opinion, because of the current economic climate. You're challenged with fixing stuff and being taxed by the economy with inflation. You inherited a problem. It wasn't of your making, I'll admit that. But you're in the chair now to make a difference because you need to plan. You need to plan for the next operational period, and that next operational period was when you were no longer in office. Therefore, a short-term Band-Aid for the problem, in my opinion, would be a sales tax. $0.50 to pay for streets, $0.50 to pay for water, and let the people with the Montana, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Nebraska plates and Walmart parking lot pay for our problem. That would be a helpful solution, in my opinion. Any questions?
No, sir. Thank you.
Boomer Center.
Do we have anyone else who would like to speak in the public hearing? Okay, come on up. State your name and address, please.
My name is Carla Gilbert. I live at 1804 North 6th. I'm not a big public speaker, but I'd like to address the respected commissioners.
Okay.
People who are retired or disabled or otherwise on fixed incomes in this town, it's going to be a big burden, this mill levy increase. On top of the assessed values increased, it's making very difficult to stay living in our Kansas City. I just wanted you to consider, do we need $1 an hour a piece for everybody across the board? That's a big chunk of money here. When we do not, well, our Social Security checks, we'll get a little COLA from the government, but not, according to the paper I got in the mail, the increase was like 14, almost 15%, this increase of the mill. And our inflation rate is not even that much. I just want you to consider that before you vote. And I guess that's about all I need to say is consider the people on fixed incomes, and it seems like there's either rich or poor here. We don't have much middle class left.
Thank you.
I'm Lacey Poole, 1125 North 3rd. You guys have already heard, obviously, kind of the same message. Looking at this, everyone takes a large part of the mills. There's 4 entities. You have to go to 4 separate meetings. Everyone says, well, we don't control this one and we don't control that one. You call the county. They say, well, talk to the people with the mill levy. We just raised your assessments so we can fairly disperse it. That's what they'll tell you. Then you say, well, we're not in charge for the assessments. Well, the bottom line is, when every entity is raising our taxes 600,000 or 576. I missed the college meeting and I'm disappointed because I really wanted to go to that one. Everyone is taking a bigger piece. Our people are moving. I'm considering getting an Oklahoma real estate license because my phone calls are, oh my gosh, we can't continue to live here. Oklahoma's not very far away, guys, and it is much cheaper to live there.
It is.
Much.
Their state has other sources of income through the oil. It is cheaper to live in Oklahoma. I don't have a problem with saying that. But here in our community, we don't control the assessment. And here in our community, we live on what we can. Now, the assessed values of how the county lays it out, I don't have any idea. They tell me it's state guidelines. But every single one of us sitting up here pays ours as well, or has to buy groceries or gas or utilities.
And it's more of a conversation of what do we do to change this? Why should Cali County be one of the highest tax-based communities when we're one of the lower median incomes?
Well,
it doesn't work out very good on paper for people.
Well,
there's going to be people having to sell their homes. Pains my heart when some little older person has worked their whole life and they can no longer afford to live in a house that they have paid for. That's what we're up against.
Well, then we need to talk to senators and House of Representatives about.
Give us their number. I mean, I don't know.
They're posted.
Grants.
I don't have them on me.
Continue to just raise our taxes.
But that's happening everywhere, Lacey. It's not just here.
One of the higher ones.
We actually aren't.
Winfield's mill is less than ours.
Because their dollar of value is higher per mill.
And they have the electric,
That was a good move for them 40 years
they own their
ago.
electric.
70, yeah.
Now that they've negotiated their contracts, it'll be fine again. They've accounted for overages, I think. But we need to do something that doesn't put it on the taxpayer. Because if everyone who's here actually improving their properties and paying taxes no longer wants to be here, we're going to have a bigger problem.
We also have a lot of people that are moving in. I'm not disputing what you're saying that people are leaving. We have a lot of people that are moving in. The communities and the larger employers are working very hard to recruit new people to the area.
Is that going to lessen the tax burden as a whole?
The more properties you get, the more the divide is,
We're
yes.
not getting a bunch of new properties.
Well, that's probably what we need to concentrate on is how do we get.
To do the construction and.
Yeah.
It's a lot when you can't even get a plumber here right now.
I know.
It's a problem.
Well, the college is going to start working on that. They're going to have plumbers and
Their tech
electricians.
center.
Which is going to be good.
Yeah, it
The
is.
college is great and we should give them mills, but also why are we investing so much in Wellington? Are they paying a mill? Yeah, there's things that.
I don't know. I didn't go to the college meeting either, so I don't know what they're paying in Wellington. But according to them, their sales tax is paying for their investment down there. The tech center is coming here to Arc City. So, thank you.
Thanks, Lacey.
Does anyone else wish to speak at the public hearing? Yes, sir.
I didn't originally wish to, but you put on two big points I've got to address. None of us like higher taxes. I think this commission and the previous commissions have done a wonderful job of holding those taxes to a minimum. I heard one lady complain earlier that it was on the Revitalization Act or one of the other tax things. I worked very hard 20 years ago to help get that revitalization tax in, to give owners of property a chance to buy a property, fix it up, and save some money for 10 years until they fell into the tax rule we all are in. I hate higher taxes. I understand everything people have said here. It makes it hard for people on fixed incomes to pay increases. But our bigger problem in Cali County is not city commission, it's not school districts, it's not even the county. You have to look to the state of Kansas. The state of Kansas has divided this state up. There's 110 counties in the state. There are 25 counties in the state paying for the state of Kansas. They have changed the tax rules where farm tax, agricultural taxes are the lowest of any tax rate per $1 million of property. I believe it's about 6% now. I'm in commercial industrial property. I pay 36%, 6 times. That's not fair. And it's only in areas like ours that have a high amount of industrial property. We've got to address the state. I would ask this commission to join me and several other people in a lawsuit against the state of Kansas for violating the equal rights of taxation in the state of Kansas. We're taxed 6 times what they are in western Kansas, twice what they are in Kansas City, Kansas. I don't know where Wichita falls into that, but I'm guessing because it's a big town, they're paying half the taxes we are per dollar valuation. When you get big cities controlling the votes for big districts, they're controlling the taxes that we pay. That tax bill that somebody had up here a minute ago, 35 to 40% goes straight to Topeka, where it's spent anywhere they want to. I add to that, probably 30% of my taxes are fuel taxes, on top of my property taxes, on top of my income tax, on top of my sales tax, on top of, we all stack them up. They're taking approximately 50% of every dollar made in Cali County in some form of tax to Kansas. We have to rise up as citizens, as our city, and as our county commission and say enough's enough, guys. We're taking the heat because we're all well known. Everybody here knows everybody in the room almost. We all know that nobody here is getting rich off this tax increase. We know where it's going to go, but we can't seem to figure out a way to stop it. I think this top is a legal action, and I believe it's been done before. I know it was. My dad did it 40 years ago. Filed a suit against the state of Kansas and won. They had to come back, and not only did they have to come back and address taxes, they had to address the districting of the different counties that were also unfairly districted for one reason or another. That's where we got to fight. All states use this. They use the cities and the counties and the school districts and so on. They take the money out of the county and then they give them a tidbit back, like I feed a dog. And I'm tired of being fed like a dog. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to speak at the public hearing? Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
James Richardson, 920 Highland Drive. I feel like my question is pretty simple. All the assessments increased, as we all know. So to increase our revenue neutral, wouldn't that also be double dipping as far as increasing the tax you guys are pulling off of those increased assessments? So the increased assessments, right? You guys are going to get a higher dollar amount for those increases.
Per mill?
So then, wouldn't you guys want to decrease our mill levy to then offset the increase of assessments so that the taxes
We have like,
are revenue neutral?
to get down to the revenue neutral, we wouldn't be able to do that.
With an increase, I mean, everybody's increased.
But if we stay at the revenue neutral rate, then that's what last year was, 2021. We can't do that any more than we have to put fuel in the vehicles. We have to put fuel in the fire trucks.
Increased taxes based on the assessments.
The neutral revenue rate would be the same dollar amount as last year, basically. That's where they get the reduced.
But our taxes are based upon the mill levy, right?
Right, but the mill levy would drop from 70 to 61, so we would not be assessing.
I think the confusion is based off the dollar amount, and then that's what gives you the mill.
Yeah.
It's a dollar amount that then bases the mill. I think that's what you're trying to say. And that
But
is,
the total dollars are increasing based upon the assessments.
But no, because the dollar amounts are what we operate off of. We have a budget of $33 million.
I think what he's trying to say, and Jennifer, correct me, I think he's saying if we need $100 and each mill's worth $1, then technically we should get 100 mills or what, this is just an example, everyone. I'm not saying 100 mills. So don't, that's not, but if we say we need 100 mills and then $100 and each mill's worth $2, then technically we're only getting 50 mills. So we have dropped the mill. It's just about our dollar amount's still 100. Now, what we're doing is we're saying we need this much more money, and then they'll base off the valuations. That's how many mills you get. But it's a dollar amount is what we're looking at, not the mill number.
The city
Does
runs.
that make sense? And we're saying we need $120 this year instead of $100. And so then we'll base the mills off, then the mills will be based off that 120.
But based on the property taxes, you guys are going to get 150.
No, we can only get that 120.
The excess funds.
They'll drop the mill levy down. That's what they'll do. That's right? Yes.
That's what I'm saying, the mill levy would drop from 70 to 61.
It's based off the dollar amount, not the mill amount. So once our valuations come in, then that'll determine what the valuation of each mill, which then will determine the mill to get us to that 120. We can't go over 120.
So why does the appraiser say that our taxes are based upon the mill levy, but our taxes are based upon the property value, right?
Sure.
Or
Well,
should be?
it's, Jennifer,
Please.
It is formula, so the value of one mill is how we figure how many mills we'll need. Okay, we put a budget together, this is how much we're short, this is the mill levy we need. That number and your assessed valuation, it's 11.5% of your valuation is the residential rate. Gets times by that number, that mill number.
Madam Mayor, and probably rather than seated there, if you would excuse for just a moment, mine would be to simply clarify, because this is new. The revenue neutral rate is what, 2 years old?
Mm-hmm.
and it's still confusing in the language and the verbiage. But functionally, what I think the gentleman is asking is with the proposed, see, we're having a meeting to discuss exceeding, is this correct? The revenue neutral rate. So what the gentleman is asking is will, based on our proposed mill assessment, will he pay in the little bracket that says City of Kansas City, will he pay the same amount, more or less when he gets his tax bill? That's the question.
Right.
I think if you could clarify what exactly, why are we having a meeting to exceed the revenue neutral rate and whether or not that's going to have a dollar amount impact on the citizens and the property owners. If we just get the answer to that instead of saying, well, one is dollars, one's mills, one's revenue neutral. Is he going to pay more? That's what he will. I think that's what you're asking.
Well, I know I'm going to pay more.
I want that, can we just, generally speaking, clarify, is that what our intent is or not?
Jennifer? All the cities, correct me if I'm wrong, all the cities operate off a dollar value, correct?
Correct.
The mill is the word the state gave, but it doesn't mean anything to us other than this is how much dollars, how many mills we're going to give you in order to get to the dollar amount you're looking for. Because we all operate off a cash basis, right? So we have to have the money before we can do the program, run the city. And so we're not allowed to.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I think if we need 120, the mill is just, if you need 120 and the mill's here, how many mills do you need to get that 120? Well, if your valuations go way up, you're going to need less mills to get that 120.
Right.
If you need 120 and everyone's assessed value and property has to drop down, you're going to need more mills. So then it's going to look like the city has bumped. So, I mean, it's based off, that mill's just based off valuation or the valuation needed to get to that. That's all the mill is. The dollar amounts am I right, Jennifer?
Correct.
I mean, that's about as simple as I can.
That mill levy is going to change. We don't even have our final valuations until November.
So
that mill number is going.
We had that done before November.
So we do it before they're going to give us final numbers. All right.
So we're basing it off of what we think could be the tax or the valuation of our city.
So the mill should be going down, right?
Well, if it should, yes, technically, yes, if everything comes in as, yes.
Yeah, we
need more money.
It dropped by a slight amount, so did most all, dropped by
Depending on what
slight
the
amount.
final valuation of the city or
Right.
what the valuation of our city is.
We have one large industry that is getting a 2.1 million, 2.2
In exemptions.
in exemption. So we'll lose that off of the evaluation. So, anything else?
So in November, we'll know how many mills.
Correct.
It'll be locked in, yes, to the state.
But you guys decide how many mills?
We determine the budget. That's all we determine, the dollar amount. That's all we determine is the dollar amount. We determine the dollar amount, the county will determine the valuation. And then based off that valuation, they will then say, okay, the mills is this many percentage. It'll take this many mills to get you to this dollar amount as a city. And as your appraised value of your home, business, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's confusing, I know.
The way I understand it, if we don't raise this, if something should happen, we should have really a catastrophic thing happen. Next year, we would not be able to raise it. We would have to stay where we're at. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
So in other words, if we don't raise it, we're kind of saying to ourselves, well, nothing can happen. And I know the way things are going to happen.
Yeah. What happened to them last year? Does anyone else want to speak at the public hearing?
Sure, why not?
Okay,
I don't know nothing about any of those and stuff, so.
please state your name and address.
Billy Gilbert, 1804 North Sixth.
Okay.
Arkansas City, Kansas. And I just want to know about the dollar, the big pie chart. It's got a green dollar for everybody. Does that include pensions and insurance? Or are we going to get hit with another bill in the middle of the year for pensions costs are going to go up and insurance costs are going to go up? And how's all that?
The city treasurer, would you stand and answer that?
That includes the total impact of all the wage and benefit adjustments. That's the total.
That's the total impact.
Are we behind on our pensions for city and
No.
we're not? Okay. There's a lot of places that are, and I didn't know if we were.
Yeah, we are not.
And we, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, we cannot, once this budget is set, we can't go
Above it.
where it's set.
No, I've already published it, so we
Yeah.
already can't go.
Yeah, so it's.
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to get hit with 2 or 3 more special elections during the year, and with this going up and that going up.
No.
So,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Does anyone else want to speak at the public hearing? Seeing none?
Motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been motioned and seconded, and we close the public hearing. Any further discussion? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. What's next? I'm in my glasses. Look.
So we're going to move on to 1A, which would be consider a resolution to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
Nobody up here wants to make that motion, so I will. I move that we accept a resolution to exceed the revenue neutral rate.
I'll second that motion, even though.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, commission? Seeing none, it's a roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something?
Well, I defer. I asked the question earlier for a simple articulation of will the tax bill go up or not? And we went back to R&Rs and mills and dollars in the state and the federal and all of this. So I don't think we want to have that conversation. So this is me not talking. Sorry. I just want I don't want our constituents to feel like we didn't just give them a straight answer about the impact of this act.
I'll ask the question, will the tax bill go up?
So if your valuation increased, which most of us here saw an increase, your tax bill will go up, yes. If you did not get an increase, it will actually drop just slightly.
Thank you. Now that's been stated.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify with aye.
Roll call.
Oh, it's roll call, sorry. Yeah, that's fine.
Commissioner Jennings,
Aye.
Commissioner Rogers,
Yes.
Commissioner Spillman,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Mayor Kinker.
Yes. Okay, item 2.
So hold a public hearing to receive public comment regarding the proposed 2023 budget.
I'll make a motion that we open a public hearing to receive public comment regarding the proposed 2023 budget.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we open the public hearing. Any further discussion? Hearing none.
I have a question. Can I?
We're opening the public hearing. That's what we're voting on now. Okay. Hearing none. All in favor of opening the public hearing signify with aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our public hearing is open. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
My name is Mickey Schmidt, and I live at 426 North C Street, the best corner in town. When Halloween comes, nightmare on D Street. You guys all have to come to it.
Okay.
So on Friday, there was an article in the paper about a guy we pay just shy of $90,000 now, up till the end of 21, 22, to promote business in our city. I don't even remember his name, but I just read it.
Oh, retail track.
Yeah.
Retail track.
Have we added that to this budget yet?
It's included in the budget that's proposed.
So we're gonna add him again?
It's proposed in the budget again, yes. Doesn't mean they have to renew his contract.
Do we have somebody in the city that can do that job?
That's a huge question.
That's $44,000.
If you understood what he did and the magnitude of it.
I
what
have
he-
an understanding of what a guy like that does.
Then no,
Do
not,
we have anybody in the city that could do that for?
I'm not advocating one
$44,000?
way or the other. I'm just saying that, not with his contacts, but there's probably other people that
Could
can
we
do it.
bring that to the attention of the budget committee?
Yes. Currently, we're under contract with him.
Till the end of,
Into 21, or 22.
so January is the end of his contract?
Into December here.
Can we address that issue?
Yes.
We intend to.
And find somebody in the city to do that job for $44,000?
I don't think we can get anybody to actually do that project. We tried to do it in-house years ago and it just didn't work. He's the type of guy that knows a lot of contacts. We've got a business that's going to be going down to the south end of town that he promoted and brought in, and that's probably going to pay, once they get built and the sales tax come in, that's probably going to pay his first year's salary.
So basically, we all feel confident in his ability to bring this.
Yes, and he's got several big contacts that he's working on right now, prospects.
But his next year and the year after haven't been solidified?
No.
No, we're not.
We could address that at a budget.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
To clarify, General, just because it's in the budget doesn't mean we have to do it throughout the year, anything. So disaster hits and we got 5 cars, which I'm not saying that's going to happen. We could pull that out to fix something else. So just because it's in the budget doesn't mean it has to be done. It's just we're trying to figure out from each department what they need, don't need. Yeah, I know. Yeah, you could, and I agree. You could pull that out. Yeah, you could. Any other things on here, you could technically in it.
That's all I was addressing.
Do we have?
Good question.
Do we have anyone who would like to comment on the public hearing of the budget? Seeing none? Anybody? Last chance. Public hearing.
I'll make a motion. Someone say something. I'll make a motion. We close the public hearing.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Commission, do you have any further discussion?
Madam Mayor, I think that I appreciate all the commentary. I think it's also important that we notate that when we talk about things like catastrophic events or disasters, that it's not just budget dependent. We then do have, even though we've vilified the state and its taxing base, we do have the right to reach out to the state for declarations of emergency where the governor can release funds to respond to that. Significantly enough, like the flood of 1998, you can also reach out to the federal government where they will release funds. So it's not like we got to say you can't buy new cars for the police cars because new tires for the police cars because we had a disaster. We do have other recourse for responding to events beyond our control, beyond say we have to, gut something out of our operating funds. The message that I think needs to be effectively conveyed is it is the disposition of this body that we have a prudent budget that concerns itself with day-to-day operations and the ability to respond to citizen needs, and that we know where to go if we need to reach out for help. We don't have any slush in the budget. We just are operating from it. But yeah, we're not bound by if the street falls in, that we have to say we're not going to do this, that, and the other. We just petition for emergency declaration. CNN picks it up, and all of a sudden we're on the news. We're on the news, and we're getting funding from a larger government source. So they're not always our enemy. Sometimes they are our friend.
Okay. Absolutely. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by commission? All in favor? Oh, roll call.
No, close the public hearing. We're gonna-
Close the public hearing.
We just vote now.
So, the rules. All in favor of closing the public hearing signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. She even writes it down here. Roll call vote.
Well, I'll make a motion. We consider the reading of the ordinance adopting the 2023 budget for the city of Arkansas City.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the budget for 2023. Any further discussion among commission? Hearing none. All in favor signify with aye. Oh, it's roll call. See?
Commissioner Jennings?
It's because they don't think I can only say aye. Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Rogers?
Yes.
Commissioner Spielman?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Mayor Gayman?
Yes. Declared. New business.
Item 1. Consider first reading of an ordinance adopting by reference the standard traffic ordinance for Kansas City's 49th edition, prepared and published in book form in 2022 by the League of Kansas Municipalities.
Mayor, Commissioners, you had some printed materials. I'm not sure what length of time we've been here. Do you want me to go through one of these items, or do you have some prepared questions, or how would you like to proceed?
I'm going to bed till 10.
The majority of the commission was able to go through this with you. Commissioner Jennings may have some specifics.
Satisfy the will of the body, please.
You just want
I
to hit on.
think they want the summary.
Just hit on a summary of it.
Okay, most of the standard traffic ordinance were either language updates or display license tag was an ordinance that expired. There was definition of electronic assisted bicycles, which they took out of the definition of motor vehicle. They placed in an 8-15-100 at SEC after that to tell us what those are and to give them basically the definition for a bicycle. Those are just some usual things. I don't think anything controversial about any of those things. I will put a caveat on that. The electric assist bicycles, I think we may want to revisit when we look at the golf carts and the ATVs and those things. But as the state statute reads now, I think I'd recommend following. The big one here is DUI, and I say big, it's not really that huge. Basically, everything can either be the same, or the legislature has built in some ability for courts and for judges to do some things at sentencing on first and second offenses, which would affect our court. They can reduce fines. There's certain things they can do with fines, and there's certain things they can do with incarceration. They can continue to do it as they are, but they also have some other options, which where those limitations were stricter in the past. STOs, that's really the only thing that happened, not a whole lot. Questions about any of that?
Well, I still continue to say that I want to make sure that we offer community service work to get the fines reduced.
Yeah, and that's part of the flexibility. That was the word I was looking for, that the courts will have. They will will have that. They will have reduction of fines up to a certain point. The state will get their cut, and they will have some flexibility on incarceration.
I know there, Madam Mayor. may I?
Yes.
I know there was some dialogue after the session had closed with the state legislature. They were talking about the impact of some of the mechanics of DUI, functionally that there was a immediate suspension of driver license. There were fines to be paid. Once you paid your fines and whatever the restitutions were, there was this additional 6-month waiting period that they were saying your license would still be suspended, and that they had started the dialogue saying that too was contributing to the worker shortage because people had satisfied all their legal obligations, but they were still sitting there in the timeout zone because we just wanted to make the event as miserable as it could for them. But was there any addressing of that flexibility, whether they could shrink that time period after all financial obligations? Another had been.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nothing in this session that rises to the level of what we're doing with STO. I think that's going to follow. I can't necessarily predict that, but the main, I think, thrust was DUI at this point, and Clerk and I were talking about kind of there needs to be a change on that because now you actually have a greater penalty for driving while suspended in some cases than you do for DUI. That will change. That happened a few sessions ago with possession of marijuana was reduced to a class B, but possession of paraphernalia stayed an A. It followed that somebody saw that. And I know there's a lot of interest in what you're saying, but not for what we're here for tonight.
Okay, thank you.
And I know they can get a temporary or get some sort of permit through the state to be able to drive while and that's something municipal court can get the paperwork for? Do they find it on their own?
To call driver services.
Okay. So. All right. Any further discussion?
Well, that being said, I make a motion that we adopt the ordinance adopting by reference the standard traffic ordinance for the Kansas City's 49th edition prepared and published in the book form in 2022 by the League of Kansas Municipalities.
I want to second that, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. This is a roll call vote.
Commissioner Jennings?
No. Aye.
Commissioner Rogers?
Yes.
Commissioner Spielman?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Mayor Dinger?
Yes. Okay. Number 2.
Consider first reading of an ordinance adopting by reference the Uniform Public Offense Code for Kansas City's 38th edition, prepared and published in book form in 2022 by the League of Kansas Municipalities.
Okay, I'll give you a quick rundown on this one as well. We have several items that were printed out to you, and those are pretty much the items that I will cover. And again, most of these were either definitional or they were adding something to the editor's note. What the editor note is at the end of the statute, that sort of gives you some guidance on how the legislature was thinking. And that in turn will give the court some guidance on how they will be interpreting these things, and will give law enforcement some guidance when they're out in the field saying, hey, there's an editor out here I can take a look at. The first one was the crime of sexual battery. Nothing was changed in that, but there was some case law that came down that clarified that if someone's convicted of that, they are subject to register on the Kansas Offender Registration Act. And that's just, again, in the editor's note to make people aware of that change. The theft that you see there, the theft statute is one statute that continues to grow. And what the legislature continues to do is give special provision to several different things as it comes to their attention. This had to do with remote service units, and it's put in the editor's note and really reaches out for some special attention to what we would think of as ATMs. And so really no change in the law. It's a crime. It's just noted in there that these specific things will be dealt with. Section 6.5, criminal deprivation of property. Criminal deprivation of property is depriving somebody, you intend to give it back, but you take it without their permission. And there's really two large categories. One is anything else that you could take, and the other is motor vehicles. So they have, in the statute, you can see special provisions for motor vehicles. They updated the definition of what a motor vehicle would be because they're doing that in several other statutes, and so they wanted to be consistent with this one. That's really the only change there. We come back to exempting electric assisted bicycles from the definition of motor vehicle. I kind of mentioned that earlier, but they did that again here as well. Section 6.18, motor vehicle dealer needs a license, and that is a good thing. And you might have seen some litigation in Wichita about that with the DA's office up there. The person up there did not fare too well, they did not have a license, so that's some provisions there. Section 7.5, distribution of unattributed applications for advanced voting ballots. That provision was deleted to avoid any confusion that might happen because of some case law that came down. So that's one that will not be in there. Electioneering, really the only change in 7.14 had to do with, okay, you have laws with handling ballots, and you have laws with elected officials handling ballots. Well, what if you're an elected official and you're working at the polling place, and they made provision for ways that elected officials could handle those ballots when it's actually their job without being guilty of electioneering? That's sort of it in a nutshell. 7.15 is intimidation of a witness victim, and that was just a definition there to match state law of a term called civil injury, which is just basically if there's a way to sue somebody, then there's a civil injury that could occur, you're allowed to sue them. The definition was changed to match state law in that particular criminal action, intimidation of a witness or victim. Section 9.9.5, unlawful possession of a simulated substance, again, was just a definitional thing to the definition of a simulated controlled substance was updated. And section 10.30, operating an aircraft under the influence seemed like a pretty good idea to have some regulations there. I don't know that we will see one, but if one lands in the city limits, I'm sure Chief Burr and his people will be there to make this very first time. That would be paperwork. All right. Section 11.8, gambling. Sports wagering, as you may have heard, will now be legal in some way, so it excludes sports wagering from the definition of a bet. So good luck if that's what you want to start doing. That's it in a nutshell for the changes to the UPOC. Not really a lot of substance there, but a lot of things that you should be aware of. And if you, I recommend accepting it with all of those changes. And again, a lot of these changes are updated because of case law, because of things that if we don't change them, if we don't update them, then someone makes an arrest on that, we could have some violations of the law ourselves, which we would not want. Any questions about any one of those? That just reaches out and grabs you, doesn't it?
Well, again, that
The
being,
mayor's trying to wake people up.
Yeah. That being said, we kind of went over this on our work session. I make a motion, we adopt the reference of the Uniform Public Offense Code for Kansas City's 38th edition, prepared and published in a book form in 2022 by the League of Kansas Municipalities.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second, and it's a roll call vote.
Commissioner Jennings,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers,
Yes.
Commissioner Spielman,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Mayor Gainer.
Yes,
Oh, thank you so much.
thank you. So do you know the difference between a roll call vote and and just a voice vote? And the reason they do that is because a voice vote, maybe somebody says, I didn't hear what was going on. I didn't know. So a roll call vote is I called your name and you answered me.
So if we just said yes, would you spare us that explanation?
I guess. Yeah. Next.
Consider first reading of an ordinance amending zoning regulations, Article 28, floodplain management, and incorporating such regulations by reference.
This is actually not totally different from what Larry just did. We're doing kind of the same thing with this. Earlier this year, the city entered into, well, we didn't enter an agreement. We desire to join the community rating system of FEMA. And part of what that does is it asks the city to go above some of the minimum requirements that are part of the National Flood Insurance Program. Many of those things are stuff we're already doing anyways. This just recognizes that we're doing those things. And the rest of the changes, other than what we're doing right now, are mostly administrative. Just we need to do paperwork a little differently. We need to do it better. But again, part of this program requires us to be in line with a higher set of regulations. The way that program works is it's based on a point system. So the more changes we make, the more points we get. And the points are used to determine a potential discount on flood insurance policies. So all that being said, staff worked with the Kansas Department of Agriculture to look at our ordinance to make sure it was in line with the current program guidelines. It has not been updated since 2010. Most of the amendments that are before you tonight are involved in out-of-date language. So some of it's procedural, some of it's just how we handle the day-to-day. Variances is one thing. We're going to handle those a little different. So if somebody's wanting to do something that's not right with the regulations, but there's a ability to get a variance for it, what happens today is you have to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals. What this will change is a lot of those things actually will be handled by staff, so you won't have to have that extra step. So we'll streamline that a little bit. For the most part, there isn't even an increase in regulations. However, there is one big one, and that involves the elevation of mechanical equipment. So if you have an AC unit that's not elevated to the same height as the house today, under this program, you would have to be elevated. Now, I want to make a clarification because it came up at the public hearing at the Planning Commission. That only involves cases where it's new construction or it's substantial improvement. So if today somebody is in the floodplain and has this mechanical equipment that's not elevated, that's allowed to stay because they're, for lack of a better term, but grandfathered in. Same thing with your house. If the house is not elevated up to the right height today, it's allowed to stay because it existed before that. But if you do a major improvement to the house, then it has to come into compliance as well. That's already on the books. That's standard for the program. If you didn't do that and you had flood insurance policy, you would probably lose the policy. With that, I could go into as much detail as you want, but I'm assuming we want to keep this light. The changes are all listed in the package. This did require a public hearing, which was held before the Planning Commission last month. And they did vote to recommend all of the changes be approved.
How many homes we talked about seeing that floodplains?
I can't remember the exact number, but part of the process for getting the public notified was I sent letters to everybody that has a property that's within the floodplain. I believe there was 300-ish.
Okay.
There were some duplicates in there, but that was about how many properties we have. Most of our floodplain is along the C Street Canal. There's some odd pockets. They're ponding. And then there's some east between the new levee on the east side and the old levee. It's kind of a strange area, but it's a little lower lying and so the floodplain as well. And there's a little bit of wind too.
Yes, we are.
Anyone have any further questions?
I move we accept an ordinance amending the zoning regulations, Article 28, floodplain management, and incorporate such regulations by reference.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and it's a roll call vote.
Commissioner Jennings,
Yes.
Commissioner Rogers,
Yes.
Commissioner Spillman,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Mayor Gayheim.
Yes.
Before you move on, I should say that as part of this, we're also going to have you sign off on the new bylaws, not bylaws. What's the proper term for this? It's the policies that I
Thank you
follow.
for coming.
As Plan administrator. I'll have the mayor sign off on that.
Good.
Part of the passage of that.
Consider first reading of an ordinance exempting the application of KSA 41719C to allow the sale and consumption of alcoholic liquor at a designated area of Wilson Park during the Cali Market Craft Show from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, September 24th, 2022.
Hi, I'm Shelley Roberts, and I own the Margarita Express. I wanted to see if you would allow me to sell Bloody Marys and margaritas, excuse me, at the art market on September the 24th or any of your parties.
You had that during Takalala, didn't you?
I talked, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm familiar with Ogallala, but I was not familiar with
You worked with the chief of police and Chief Burr, and you got it, so everything's situated and
Yeah.
figured out like you've done it before, so.
I've done 8
Yeah.
other events, yeah, and I work with, I mean, every city and county is different, and I don't know if you have an ordinance. If you have an ordinance against it, then the mayor's got to override it or provision it, and then I can get a temporary permit.
Yeah, the city commission does it. Yeah. Any further questions? Go ahead.
Can I speak about this?
Yes.
Nice to meet you. I'm Leslie, by the way. Also, this is part of the craft shows that are going to be here. There's going to be 4 more or 3 more.
Thank you.
The other ones are going to be at the Ag Building on September 8th, November 19th, and December 3rd. And she would like to also go ahead and do the margarita during the craft show at the Ag Building. Right now, the Ag Building only has where you have to be 21 or older to enter the facility. So I was going to ask if she would, address the commission as far as seeing if the commission would allow her to have a designated area roped off for her margarita stand during the events that are happening on that craft show on those days. That would just be something that if the commission approved it, she already holds a caterer's license, so she has the proper state license. It's just, we don't allow anyone under 21 during any events, but since this is open to the public, I mean, it would be up to the commission to allow her to do it on those days.
Also, Christine with the chambers here too. She was, same subject matter.
I was voted unanimously by email saying we can't make it. So I'm Christine Carson, and I'm the assistant to Paisley Howerton at the Arc City Chamber of Commerce. And we are holding our annual banquet on Saturday, February, I believe, 3rd. It is the first weekend, first Saturday of February. And we are also requesting that we be able to have liquor available at the Ag Building for when we do have our chamber banquet.
So you have 5 times that you want. 4 total?
4 for her and 1 for.
1. So 5.
Just trying to see how we can do this. What the
Well, the ordinance would be because you're allowing alcohol.
No, I'm just saying, how do we word it just to allow sell for the, I'm just.
Larry,
how to word it.
how would we do it?
Would you want to do?
I would say, as far as you're talking about the agribusiness building, allowing the exemption.
Do you want to use the
actual dates, or do you want?
dates?
Yes.
Somebody better put
What are the dates again?
For the agribusiness building, it'd be October 8th, November 19th, and December 3rd. and then whatever.
And ours.
February.
The first Saturday in February, I believe, which would be February 3rd or 4th.
Well, we probably make two different deals. We
Do
got one.
chamber one.
Yeah,
Yes.
And then do the
yeah, it'd be two
Yes.
separate items.
Cali Market Craft Show.
What,
Together.
when you listed, did you also say September 24th?
Well, that's at Wilson Park, so the ordinance will take care of that.
Yeah.
The others are at the Ag Building.
It's just the ag building.
Saturday?
Is the issue.
So the ordinance would be an exemption.
February 4th.
This is somewhat mushrooming into a more of a blanket action rather than just for Wilson Park. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Correct.
And should,
She was here, I believe.
Should we do an ordinance for the Wilson Park, then do an ordinance for those 3 days for the ag building?
Commission just needs to give approval to have staff allow them to, so they can do, so they can have alcohol at the agribusiness building and allow people under 21. It's the only exemption that we're requiring the commission to consider.
We will not have anybody under 21.
So then you won't need approval from the commission.
Okay.
So we're good there. I didn't know about that.
yeah, it seemed to have gotten somewhat convoluted in terms of who was asking for what and when, and where the 21-year-olds needed to be and where the 16-year-olds could go and things like that. So I was kind of concerned about one act or one motion, trying to cover all those nuances.
Well, do we just need to go ahead and vote on this first one and then bring the other?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Thank you.
That's what
I make a motion. Go ahead.
Are you going to be roped off at Wilson Park?
I don't do
Separated?
it. Usually the police officers do it at the place I've been in. So I can do it. You just have to give me the perimeters.
Is she going to be, how do we do that? We've always had like the Arkalala thing, they've roped it off so no one under 21 can go at Wilson Park. She's saying in the areas she does it, police departments usually rope it off, but she can if we need her to.
Okay, and this is in regards to alcohol.
Alcohol, no.
No, this is the craft show for.
At Wilson Park.
At Wilson.
September 24th, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Normally, how we've handled beer gardens is that whoever's sponsoring the beer garden is responsible for creating the perimeter. We do have the ability to.
So the Cali Market Craft Show would be the one to need to rope it off.
Yes.
Yes.
And make the.
Designated area.
The appropriate considerations for all that.
Signage and stuff.
And we will have officers that can be present to be able to monitor that area, but normally it is the entity that takes care of that.
Okay.
Vote on this one.
Yeah, just this
On the 24th.
Okay, I make a motion, we allow the sale of consumption of alcohol liquor at the designated area at Wilson Park during the Cali Market Show from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, September the 24th, 22.
Roll call. You have a second?
Second.
How you do?
Commissioner Jennings,
Nay.
Commissioner Rogers,
Yes.
Commissioner Spielman,
Yes.
Commissioner Warren,
Yes.
Mayor Gainer.
Yes. Provided it's roped off. Okay.
Then I make a motion, we have the alcohol liquor designated at the agribusiness building on October the 8th, November the 19th, and December the 3rd.
13th.
December
what?
The 3rd?
No,
Yeah.
3rd.
3rd.
Yeah, 3rd.
December 3rd.
So we have a motion.
Those need to be roll call too, right? Nope. I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. My only statement is to make sure it's a roped off area in the building as well. Any further discussion from commission? Is a voice vote? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All right.
How many ayes did we have there? One?
4.
4? Okay, all opposed?
Nay.
Okay,
One abstention.
and one abstention. Okay,
That's 6 votes.
Going.
3 ayes,
Three
1
ayes.
no, 1 abstain.
So who abstained?
Commissioner Spielman.
okay. Moving on.
Consider a resolution regarding the cleanup of the property located at 425 West Quincy Avenue and providing for cooperation with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment in achieving said repair and cleanup.
Madam Mayor, City Commissioners, we have a resolution for your consideration for the property at 425 West Quincy Avenue. This is a KDHE fund. It's a grant that they give to us up to $10,000, and we have to match 25%. But we still get the full 10,000. We have to have a 25% match to it.
And we're using our in-house labor and equipment to meet that match. There's no cash.
So the majority of the 10,000 would go for like the landfill charges and that stuff to get the property. We've done this 2 other times too.
Okay.
And we have here Toby King, he's with KDHE.
Made him wait this way.
He's an expert on it.
Thank you so much. On behalf of the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, Bureau of Waste Management, we appreciate you taking the time to visit with me this evening. My name is Toby Kuhn. I'm the program manager for the legal dump program. Just kind of expand a little bit on what you were told. The legal dump program is a state of Kansas KDHE program that operates in all 105 counties throughout the state of Kansas. I'm the only person that manages the program, so I get a lot of windshield time. I get to drive all across the beautiful state, assisting cities and counties. First of all, with this program, KDHE does not come into your community and tell you that you have to partner with us. By state statute, we can only operate within a city or county at the request of the local governing entity. As stated, we pay up to $10,000 per site is the maximum that KDHE can reimburse. It is a 75-25% match. Luckily, the 25% match can be done through in-kind services, such as your labor, your equipment, landfill fees, depending on the situation. All city staff time is incorporated with that. We do reimburse at FEMA rates for employees and FEMA rates for equipment. Essentially, we are hiring your Public Works Department, Road and Bridge, whatever you have designated here, to actually do the work under our supervision to make sure all the items of solid waste are taken off the property. A couple things that we cannot do with the program is we cannot do anything with vehicles, and we cannot tear down houses. That's usually the number one question is, can you help us with our dilapidated housing problem that we have, unsafe structures? But we can't tear down those. We can only deal with any waste regulations. So if we come across any household hazardous waste, solid waste, that's the only thing that this program can do. In this particular case, the property owners inherited, the waste. The responsible parties are no longer with us. So there would not be any restitution on the property owners from KDHE to be able to move forward, and they have consented to be able to, for KDHE and our representatives to come onto the property. So basically what we're needing to move forward is some of the paperwork that's associated with the resolution for budget keeping purposes, because since the KDHE will be submitting a check to you if you decide to enter into a contract with KDHE for this property. That's really brief in a nutshell. I can talk a little bit more particulars if anybody has any questions.
Did we apply for help? How did you guys find out about the property?
KDHE was requested to come in and just take a look at the property to see if we could assist and how much we could assist, what we can do. I met with your city staff. I have looked at the property. I've met with the property owners. The property owners have signed our consent access agreement to be able to do that. So now we're just at the stage on whether the city would like to move forward. This is a situation that, following your city codes, city ordinances, Some cities, do all the cleanup themselves without any assistance from KDHE. The benefit with this program is we handle all the paperwork associated with it in conjunction with the city. We give you the contracts for your attorney to review. We work with city staff, get the work plan, and then we give you a check after that's done versus you, as part of the city, just having your staff go on and clean up themselves and you cover the cost 100%.
I didn't know. Did our staff reach out to Katie? Okay, that's what I was asking. Okay. Want to entertain a motion?
I'll entertain a motion regarding the cleanup property located at 425 West Quincy Avenue, Arkansas City, Kansas, and providing for cooperation with the Kansas Department of Health and Environmental in achieving the said repair and cleanup.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Next.
Consider a resolution authorizing the transfer of certain real estate at 212 North 3rd Street to George and Lisa Cummings.
Thank you all for coming tonight.
So this is a property that was declared dangerous in 2020. And at that time, the city entered into an agreement with the current owners to transfer the property to the city in exchange for demolition. So the intent was to put the property in our land bank, but the property got transferred to the city instead. So I was kind of in the process of getting it transferred to the land bank, but then I was approached before I did that by the Cummingses. Who were interested in it. They actually own the property to the north of it, and they would like to purchase the property and place a garage on it. He's here today. We're here. I did look up the county appraised value. It's valued at $6,930. That's of course open for deliberation, but I wanted to give you that number. And then the contract also has languages that are pretty similar to what we would put on a land bank property. No code violations for the first 12 months after they get it. And the garage should be placed on the property within 12 months as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay.
Okay, so my name is George Cummings. I live at 260 North. The vacant lot is to the south of us.
Okay.
It was my understanding that it was in the land bank, so since it's not, I don't know how things are going to transpire now. I mean, at $6,800, I'm not interested in it. What we want to do is purchase it at the lowest amount possible so that we can put a garage on it in 12 months. I mean, you kind of time constraint with spending that much on a vacant lot. So I don't really know how to proceed.
Okay.
What amount would you be willing to pay?
$1.
Everybody goes for that one.
Well, and we have done that. I mean, it's our goal to get things back on
The tax roll.
tax rolls.
I've heard and read that people have paid as low as $1 for it. So we was just trying to get it for, just get it back on the tax roll and get you some money going there. You guys are having to clean it up and everything every month. I mean, you didn't have to do that. You didn't have your employees have to come out and mow it down because I've called a couple of times and said it needs mowed down. We would take care of it.
Okay. Think. You should ask $2.
Okay.
Go ahead.
That being said, I know we've had some costs in it, tearing it down, but still, we're trying to get these properties back on the tax rolls and you guys are going to be spending money on it stuff. And, whether it's $1 or $10 or $100, it's really immaterial.
There's trees that need to come down.
It needs to be.
It needs to be leveled off. And,
Well, I make a motion, we consider a resolution authorizing the transfer of certain real estate property at 212 North 3rd Street to George and Anisha Cummings in amount of $1.
A second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I only wanted to clarify, I'm sorry. I understood the $6,000 to be cost prohibitive, very understanding. But does that enable you financially? Obviously, if this has to take place within 12 months, a structure like that might itself just be more than, I mean, you're still talking about clearing away brush and things like that.
Trees taken down, it's gotta be graded.
So back up, put a garage on it.
So, or am I hearing, in addition to your
Well, yeah, that would
improvement cost, the $6,000 makes it unattractive?
impossible. Yeah.
Okay, so you, all right, no questions, no other questions.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Now what do you
Now you talk to Josh.
Yeah.
Number 3,
Say $1?
$1.
Yeah.
They haven't got past me yet.
Number 3,
Consider a resolution authorizing the city of Kansas City to enter into a memorandum of understanding with a to-be-determined entity composed of Consolidated Housing Services and Consolidated Development Partners to acquire property and develop a residential housing development on the city-owned lot bordered by North First Street, North Second Street, West Birch Avenue, and West Lehigh Avenue.
Okay. Huh? Okay, go ahead.
Since it's getting to be such a late hour, I move that we table this to our next meeting.
You're fine, you're fine.
Second.
Do we have a second? Okay, motion failed. Mr. Seibert?
Is it time for discussion?
Yepper, come on up.
Okay. This is what brought me tonight. I guess I was very surprised when I started reading the paper tonight. I miss my everyday paper. I'm sure there's some stuff I missed on this, but this caught me totally off guard. I was totally blindsided by the fact that the commission was looking at a group that's defined here as to be determined entity wanting to be given the hospital property. It's been about 2 months ago that I addressed the planning or the city commission at a work session. There were only 3 of the 5 of you there. Excuse me, thank you. Very good. Okay, I've only got 2 of these left because they were given out at the commission meeting, but I'll let you guys share those. In a proposal that I took to the city commission work session, I suggested that I'd be interested in buying the hospital property for $40,000 to build what is 15 duplexes for senior citizens in Ark City. In that discussion, several things came up. The little pictures there, that was done by Gary Smith's old firm, simply so I'd have a way of showing the commissioners how I was looking at developing the hospital grounds for this type of housing. There's one little, whatever you call those houses, left out intentionally because there's a sewer line there that I did not want to disrupt. It cost about $50,000, $60,000 to move it where we could put a building there, and it's not worth the $50,000, $60,000 for one more unit. At that discussion came up that there was a company in Wichita also looking at the property and wanting to put in a mega complex of something close to what's in the paper tonight, which consists of, according to the newspaper, we're looking at a 40-unit apartment complex with 15 market rate townhomes. I don't know for sure what a townhome is, but I believe it's very similar to the duplexes that I intend to build. I am intending to build, I believe there is 15 duplexes there, which, depending on whether they call them a townhome per unit or per pair, is about the same thing. You can see by my drawing that I've wasted almost no space. If it wasn't for the sewer line, those units are closer together than most code restrictions for our city. I mentioned in my talk that I wanted to enter into a negotiation with the city to include any zoning changes. I don't believe that property is zoned properly for a 40-unit apartment complex. I believe all the people in that neighborhood are going to be totally blindsided like I am when they go to the back page of the paper and read this article, those that do. Because you're going to dump 55 units on a city block. If you look at those pictures, and I just happen to count, I'm going to come up here if you don't mind. Every house from here over, there's 45 units there. That's 6 blocks of Arc City, 45 houses here. You're going to put 45 in this little area, or 55, I mean? That's a tremendous amount of cars alone. If there's only one car per apartment or per house, you're going to dump 55 cars into that area. Again, codes are going to violate every code in Arc City for parking. You're going to park cars over on the park. You're going to park them all around the block and all the area in between to get that kind of unit slab in there. I had mentioned at that same meeting 2 months ago that I had looked at developing the ground I own on 4th and Radio Lane, and I thought that ground might be a lot better place to put a unit of this size. Now, I've been before this commission before on housing, and I know we desperately need all the housing we can get. We've got to encourage the local people to build, and I'm one of those people. I'd like to have a little pat on the back or encouragement instead of being blindsided by some outsider that won't even identify with themselves by name, want to come in and have the ground given to them and all the gimmies they can get when we're trying to develop housing together for anything that'll improve the community. I'm asking this commission not to table this, but send a resounding no. We're not going to give you the property. Come up with a concrete plan for this property or of some sort of a usage that fits our existing style. I understand in Kansas City, putting 55 units on a city block is pretty standard. And you can stand down and look at those buildings. We don't have those in Arc City. The highest skyscraper we've got is the high-rise apartment house on the hill. I believe that to be 40 units. They're going to put 55 on that block. It's just way too heavy a concentration. I know nothing about these people. I have nothing against them. If they were here, and I look very carefully around the room, but I don't see a single representative here from a yet-to-be-identified entity. I think I can identify everybody in this room and what entity they're with. They're not even here tonight. That's how interested they are in this deal. I'd like to see them. I'd like to talk to them. I'd like to tell them, we want you in Arc City. We want you to come build here. We'll give you some tax abatements. Tax abatements, that's the best investment this community can make in itself, is give these guys every break in the world when they come in. But don't use that ground in that concentration that's going to hurt everybody in that neighborhood that's paid taxes forever. That's not right. That's not fair to those people. I don't have to be one of those people. I don't own property in that area. But I'd be up here beating a drum tonight if I lived in one of those houses and knew what you were looking at doing to the neighborhood in that concentration. I can't believe you'd even seriously consider concentrating that many units in that small an area. We've never done that in Arc City. And I've taken my personal goal out of it. I'd hate to see this commission approve anything the size and scope that the newspaper is trying to put out. And I believe this is the second time or third time, Randy, they've looked at that ground and made some sort of proposal. So they definitely have an interest. First of all, it's free ground. The type of project they're looking at, and I'm just going to do some real rough figures, but if they're $20,000 per apartment on the 40 units, that's $8 million. If they're $30,000 on townhouses, that's $4.5 million. They're looking at spending $8 to $10 million easily on this development. Does it make a difference that they don't pay $40,000 for the ground it's sitting on? That's less than 1/10 of 1% of what they're getting ready to spend to give them the free grant. I don't think that's an attraction. I think the damage we do to our community is far worse than that encouragement. If we want to encourage them, go out and get some of AC Industries grant. I think AC Industry is trying to listen.
Jim, why don't you build these on your property?
The cost of putting the sewer and water, when I talked to Nick, who was the city manager at the time 2 years ago, did not want to put the city water, city streets into that area and put them on the tax rolls against the property, as well as the property taxes abatement that I'd get under the revitalization. I'd get, at that time, it was 90% for 10 years revitalization. So, and the cost of the roads and the sewer and water lines being put into that, I believe, Jay, was about $500,000 at the time.
Yeah, but there's money out there available for that from the state in there, Nick. I mean, Randy, I'm sorry.
Well, what there is the rural housing incentive district, which is basically a tax rebate. It's a rebate on incremental tax increase that can pay for infrastructure, it can pay for the streets and
Pay the city back. Or
pay the whoever.
Well, and we talked about that at the meeting. There were some other things you suggested might help do some of this. What we actually came up with at the meeting, if there's that much money available for the improvements to that property, I'd swap my property for the hospital property. Just give them 6 acres. Okay, just think about it. I'm giving 6 acres.
My personal take on this whole thing is, I mean, I've had people come to me and say, well, when did the city commission decide residential? Why aren't they doing a commercial there? When did you guys come to this decision that you're putting houses there? And when are you going to put commercial there? What are these places going to look like in 20 years, 30 years? Are we going to have a beautiful living complex next to the park? Or what are they going to look like in 30, 40 years? Are we going to regret putting something there? A lot of people are like, I don't even know why we're getting rid of this when we don't even know, is that really the best thing for that land in general? Any housing, no matter if it's yours or an outside contractor, they're like, I don't know when this was all decided that residence is what we're going to do as a city commission, and this is what we're going to do with it, and this is how it's going to be done. Why not a commercial? Why not a nice grocery store? Why not something else go there? Why not leave it as is for the future plan, which agree or disagree, I'm not one way or the other on it, but what about that master plan one day that people citizens put their time and effort in? I'm not promoting that. I'm just saying there's a lot of people out there saying, when was this just decided?
What do we want to do with this?
Well, I think that's the question a lot of citizens said, why did you guys decide this?
What I think would work well in that community, the senior citizen, and
I think
I'm not going into that program totally, but that type of housing is very needed. It frees up some existing housing that we desperately need, or my hope it is. My hope, and we mentioned it, I wouldn't have given a dime for the chances of the South 6th Street apartment complexes working when they first announced they were going to put it down there. I'm going.
They're doing well. I mean, they are doing well, but I think a lot of the concerns I've heard from some of the citizens with any residential is, what is that going to look like in 20 years or 30 years? When none of us are here, when you're not longer involved in the city and you drive by Wilson Park, is that residential area, no matter who does it or what residential person does it, is it going to be an attractive piece of property in 20 or 30 years?
In my opinion.
And that's a concern a lot of them have had, whether you do.
Years, that's a pretty short time. 50 years from now.
All right, well, 50 years from now.
The residential property will hold up far better than the commercial. And we've proven that all over the state, all over the city. Look around our town.
So, I mean, those are just concerns with doing anything tonight.
I think that's right.
I don't disagree with tabling it is my point with what Diane said, but we're talking it.
Of tonight is the fact that we never have a plan. We talk about plans. We talk about all kinds of future planning, our planning commission and everything else. What do we want on that ground? I was approached by one of the commissioners about, would you be interested in doing something on this ground? That's what started me down this road.
Well, we've got another outfit that's looking at it too, Jim.
And I understand what I'm suggesting only. I don't like the other plan's idea on that smaller property. I have nothing.
But you haven't seen their plans how it's placed yet.
I see 54 units on.
Just for a point of clarification.
Okay.
All right. I not to make enemies, but as they say, the folks who buy ink by the barrel and paper by the truckload, but the veracity of what their plan is Is there, did they say 55 units, or is that what the news?
No. Percent. And number two, I want to underscore.
To the initial question about residential versus commercial, I think that there's been this compelling dialogue with regards to our economic advancement, as well as growing our tax base for managing per unit taxes, increasing our residential housing. I've heard it said, I hope we haven't, that wasn't inaccurate,
that one of the inhibitors to being able to satisfy the workload demand in Cali County has been housing. So I do understand why that would emerge for those who are concerned.
Well,
with the question
I don't think
about,
it was, like I said, I'm for the project going somewhere, but I think a lot of people were concerned, what's this going to look like?
Right. And that's understood, but.
And I said, well, I can't tell you that. So you hope it's going to be nice.
Did the audience ask a question?
Not at this time.
So, yeah, I'm just trying to revisit. I was in the room with yours up, but I just want to know, so is it, units, is it 50? Just a moment, please. Let me finish, please. Let me finish. Is the number of units as reported in the local media in the press today, is that accurate or inaccurate based on the presentation that was given? 55 units
on that footprint.
Yes, the proposal would be 15 units of market rate townhomes and 40 units of apartments that would include market rate and affordable.
Okay.
And that's my only real objection. I've been up here too many times supporting too many other people in real estate, and I support these people. I really do, but not in this location.
You know why I asked that then? So then you understand why I asked that?
Yes. No, I do. I think that's the biggest issue I have. I have an issue with, I was here 2 months ago and never got an answer. Never got so much as a reply to anything that I brought up at that meeting. And then to read 2 months later that there's another company that's got another idea, I'm against their idea, okay?
Well, because you want your deal.
No, I'd walk away from my deal in a minute. Jay, if they'll come in and say, we'll build the 30 units or something like that, more suitable for that size district, let them have it. I don't have to build 50.
Well, I think what we need to do,
Go ahead.
we need to do is that Charles was not in that conversation when he came in. I think we need to have another work session, have him come back. Charles, you'll have to be at that meeting, have us all there and go through this thing again. And Jim, you can show up too.
I'd like to. I think the one thing that caught me off guard tonight was I had no idea this was going on. That's why I missed the paper being a daily. I don't know if there was anybody at that meeting. I didn't see anything in the paper for the last 2 months regarding any of this.
For clarification, even though I wasn't in the room, I have the presentation here in its detail. I just was not clear about the number of units in total. So I wanted to clarify that. And then also, again, I am sticking my neck out and saying mine is
high-rise, 3-story or bigger.
3-story.
Yeah. No, we want to talk factual rather than just what is reported in the paper, this information. So I just wanted to clarify that piece of it also. Yeah.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
If we're going to open this up again, I know Scott and I are both thinking there's other contractors in the area, did not know that this property was going to be offered. Do we need to open it up to everybody if we're going to do this?
I would be in favor of that. One of the two offers you've got, I'm saying fair is fair.
Yeah.
Let the commission set what they want to do with the property. Do they want it for residential housing? What type of unit structure are they looking at? And what price range are they looking at? Let the developers deal with what the city wants, not come in and give you a package of this is what we got to have to look at your community.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
with all the variants that have arisen in this discussion, I would just love it if Commissioner Spillman would revisit her proposal or motion to table this for a future meeting where we can discuss all of these tangibles
maybe do some research on it as well as then have something cohesive rather than
Okay.
these variables. So if it would please, I can't say it'll pass, but if it would please, Commissioner Spillman, please make your motion to table this again.
Okay, so I want to say something before we do that. I don't have a problem with that, but that property is sat for over 10 years. Not a commercial person has approached us and said, hey, let me have that.
I'm gonna stop you right there.
Well,
10 years ago, I offered to buy that hospital ground for $120,000.
yes, I know you did.
That it was not for sale, we're gonna build a library on it. Good, walked away. I'm being told tonight we want to open things up to everybody else. Good, I'm gonna walk away. Don't tell me it's sat there for 10 years with no interest. I've had interest in it since it tore down that hospital.
Well,
I offered to take it before they tore down the hospital, and that was a $400,000 tear down the city spent on it.
Right, I wasn't part of the commission then, so I wasn't part of the commission.
I've had 2 or 3 offers I've personally made and been aware of a few.
I wasn't on the commission at the time, but I'm just saying that I'm one of the people that went around and asked for some interest in it. Do you have interest in it? We want to get it back on the tax rolls. It's something, yes.
I'm going to flip the script. I want to submit a motion to table this for a future agenda item.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we table this item. Any future discussion? All in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next.
Okay. Consider a motion authorizing the City of Arkansas City Commissioners to sign the law concerning the 2023 final IPPS rule that could cause negative financial consequences to SCK Health.
So the CEO of the hospital, Jeff Bowman, reached out to me and asked if the city would sign a letter and send it to our legislative contingent in Washington DC. It has to do with the Medicare low volume hospital program and how the payments are divvied up on that. And I think some of the changes that made recently would have a negative financial impact on our local hospital, well, most rural hospitals in general. And so this letter is just kind of pointing that out to our legislative contingency and just asking them to reconsider those issues and the rural hospitals.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Entertain a motion?
I make a motion, we authorize the City of Arkansas City Commissioners to sign a letter concerning the 2023 final IPPS rule that would cause negative financial consequences to SCK Health.
Second? So motion is second. Any further discussion?
Any financial obligation to the city on that?
No.
No.
It's just
a letter.
Okay, I'm sorry, we've talked a lot of money. I think it's important that we just say this, just letter writing and no checks.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. City manager.
Okay, I'll go really quick. I just wanted to update you guys on the strategic work plan that we're working on that we put in place here back in the fall. Infrastructure, the water tower. Obviously, you guys saw the presentation this past Friday at the work session on the water master plan, and that addressed a lot of the water issues on infrastructure that we talked about. So water tower has been identified as the plan, and so as far as the identifying finances and costs, we have kind of a basic idea of cost on it. Obviously, more engineering would need to be done to really hone that cost. We have an idea on the cost. As far as the finances to pay for that and stuff, we're currently working on rate structures. So we'll look at different scenarios as we're doing that. in those scenarios would include, the water tower, not putting a water tower in, the different levels of work done on the water lines that need to be done. And so that piece is moving along. Same with the water and sewer lines. The water master plan obviously identified that we need to replace water lines, and Rod and his staff, he left already, identified some of the priorities that they felt like were the first ones that we need to address. So again, as we're working through the rate studies and stuff, will include those different scenarios, how aggressive we want to replace those and how we go about it, and bring some different scenarios to the commission on what that looks like. The pool and recreation options, we have been meeting, that kind of stagnated. So as we talked about the work session last week, we need to kind of get that rolling again. So, the conversations have begun. We need to kind of start those over and kind of see how that's going to play out. Wi-Fi and technology connectivity. Matt with our IT department's been working on some of that. He hasn't really found any ideal solution at the city level. There are some of the providers that we already have within our community are offering some low cost options, and so probably that's the way we need to steer people is through those options, and not probably wouldn't be financially feasible for us to as a city to go after a Wi-Fi option citywide or in a certain area or anything like that. It just probably wouldn't be productive for us to do that. Housing, we just had that conversation tonight. So determining the priorities for the city, the county, which included previous city staff, did a housing study in 2014, and then they updated it in 2019. And I've been looking at those numbers, and they really kind of line up with some of the things that we did this past year with our housing assessment. So I think we're on target with the type of housing. We're obviously rentals is the big thing that we need, but we're also lacking for purchase homes. We need lots to build on them and all that, which we don't really have. We have one area, to build homes on. It also identified downtown, that 14 and 19 study that the county did identify downtown housing. So I think a lot of the things that we're working on, we're right on track with what was identified several different times throughout the last 10 years. So that community engagement, the biggest thing is, as I sent you guys out an announcement, we did hire our communication director, and they'll be starting on the job in early October. So all the other parts that fall underneath that communication piece are still hardly accomplished at all. But now that we have that right person hired, we'll start with the development of the communication plan, and all those things will start falling in place there. So, and that's same with the community engagement piece. Economic development. We have been relying heavily on Cali First. They've had turnover twice now this year. And the Chamber of Commerce they're getting ready to have a turnover of director. So the economic development piece, other than the consulting we have with is kind of all flipped over right now. We don't have the resources that we've had in the past for that. So we'll kind of have to see how that all kind of falls back together with Cali First. They have offered a person in a position for the director's position there, and I'm not sure where the search for replacement for Paisley is over at the chamber. So those economic development things will be kind of wait and see how we need to move forward with that. Workforce development succession plan. Marla's been working pretty heavily on that. We've talked about at the management level. We've participated in some training on kind of building that pipeline for new talent within our organization. Each department head has been given a spreadsheet to kind of develop their own succession plan within their department, identifying the staff members they have now that have the potential to move up in leadership, and also kind of looking at each position, what's the risk of vacancy there? If we have a vacancy in that position, what's the risk to the organization? A good example would be if we lose our water plant operator. That's a pretty big risk to our operation. So that needs to be a high level, and that's something we need to plan for and have some plans to how we're going to backfill that. And so training, looking at how can we train these younger employees that have potential for leadership. There's some different opportunities that we have to help get them kind of built up in their leadership skills. So those are things that we're looking at there. Tourism, obviously that's going to be a Visit Our City thing. And I'll need to get over, I have not visited with Jill over there about this plan. And I think that's kind of the gist of it. We are working on it, and some areas are moving along pretty good, and other areas we'll continue to work hard at. So.
All right. Any further business to come before the commission? Commissioner? Entertain?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
What? How did you know?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign.
Since I'm now.
Vacation.
Since I'm now.
No.